So hello and welcome to the Transformational Speakers podcast. I'm your host, Erin Lomanjek, and I am super excited to bring to you someone new. This is Marc. How do you say your last name?
Guberti.
Guberti is a USA Today and WSJ bestselling author with over 100,000 students in over 180 countries that are enrolled in his online courses. He is the host of the Breakthrough Success podcast and radio show where listeners learn how to achieve their breakthroughs. He coaches content creators on how they can attract more traffic to their content and boost revenue. All of us want to boost our revenue, right? So I am super excited to have him with us today because I also know I'm about to go on a journey of creating my very first online summit. And I hear he's also the genius behind how to then make that evergreen and continue to make money while you sleep. So welcome today, Marc.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So tell us a little bit, being so young, how did you come up with it? Like, where did you start?
So before the 20 plus books, even more training courses and all that stuff, the way this all started was I'm a New Yorker, as we talked about a little off air, but I'm also a Red Sox fan. So the Red Sox fans, like, we're a rare breed to find in New York. So I wanted to hang out with my other Red Sox fans. So the way I did that was I created a blog about the Red Sox. And I started blogging about them. I got to meet some Red Sox fans online. But with that blog, I saw the potential of creating content, being able to scale, being able to make money, all the business side of content marketing. So after that experience with the blog and a few others, I decided I wanted this to be the main thing, helping people launch their virtual summits, helping people grow and make money with their podcasts. And that's how I got to where I am now.
I love it. And so tell the audience how young you are, because this is like, I'm dreaming of my son being you. So just so you know, he's only 11, but he's about to launch.
That's when I got started.
Did you? Okay, good. So he's starting his own podcast this month, now that school's over, and it's called the Always Be Awesome podcast. And he wants to get more people who are doing amazing, awesome things in the world. And one of those is Caleb Maddox, who's a 17-year-old millionaire who's been doing this a long time too. And he was like, I would love to be on Dylan's podcast. So it's pretty exciting. So I'm excited to see that my son could possibly turn into one of you two.
I'm 21 to answer your question.
I love it. Well, tell us a little bit about how, like, you really tend to help content creators, right? And we all know about content creators, or we're all swirling out, looking at the next shiny object, trying to create the next thing, instead of actually marketing what we have. So how do you help people that, like, say I have an online course, all right? So I have an online course. How do you increase leads to that?
So we start by looking at it backwards, because a lot of people, the way that you see it and the way most people think it is, I create content, then I market it, and then I figure out how I make money. That's why you see a lot of creators who they throw a lot of stuff into the world, but none of it's really sticking to get visibility. And there are then people who are getting visibility, but not the money. So that's the way most people think about it. But you have to think of it backwards. How am I going to make money with the content? So online training course, like, that's great. You have the way to make money. If you don't have that way, like, that would be the first thing we would do, like, figure out what is going to be that way for you to make money. Then we think about creating content that lines up with that course. So let's say that the course is about podcasting. You would write a blog post about how to launch a podcast, and you would have a free opt-in at the bottom. I would do the Profitable Podcasting Summit. That's one of my evergreen summits. I believe summits are a really great model. So I would have that free offer and mention that in the blog post, in the video, in the podcast episode, just for free content. But even then, like, before you create that content, have a marketing plan. Know how you're going to market your content, because too many people, they just create content and they use all the marketing tactics that they happen to remember on that day. So what you want to do instead is have a piece of paper, write down all the ways you're going to market that content, and then market it. And you have it all set up, you are getting more exposure. So marketing to a piece of content that leads to the opt-in page to something that makes you money, like leads into your course eventually.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you think about it backwards. I reverse engineer a lot of things. When I think about, okay, here's the big end goal. Okay, now how do we get there, right? And what are all the ways that you're marketing that and all the ways that you're out there showing up that you're doing those things, right? And so I love that backwards reverse engineering things, because we always think as a creator, I think most of us think in the front end, like, what's more content? What more can I put in there? What more can I put in there? Maybe it's not enough content. And we get stuck there instead of in the, like, let's drive sales. Like, let's think about the content that might drive sales and drive people to an opt-in and do all of those things instead of creating more content for the course itself, right? Or a new course, or, well, that one didn't sell, so what about this next one? So when we talk about summits, what do you suggest? Do you suggest an overarching, like, just pull some people together? Are you repurposing like podcast interviews, or are you specifically targeting one title? Like I said, I want to do a summit just for TEDx speaking coaches. So for anyone who wants to learn anything about TEDx, it's all going to be all of us who have done it and coach through it and all of that. So it's very specific. So what do you suggest in that?
I'd say for a topic, there's like a lot of summits that I've seen, some of them super general, some of them super specific. Like it also depends on how you define those things. Like for me, content marketing, like, it's specific, but there's so many more specific parts to it. While something like the Business Success Summit, that's like super broad and like, what are you going to cover? What can people expect from it? So I think as long as you pick a topic where it's clear, like very clear what people are going to get, like for your upcoming summit, like, TEDx, like that's very clear what people are going to get. Like content marketing, some people consider it a broad topic, some people consider it a specific topic, but very clear what you're going to get. While, like a Business Success Summit, like you're not sure exactly what you're going to get. Am I going to learn how to boost my sales? Am I going to learn how to better manage people? So as long as it's a topic, people know exactly what they're going to get.
Yeah. And I think that's important, because I think so many people are trying to be as broad as possible to capture more fish. But how about you actually capture the people who are going to actually stay and buy your stuff, right? Yeah. So I always think if you can be more focused on, okay, what's one problem you can solve, then start there, right? And I also think like it's about, finding out from your audience what they want, because we could sit here and create whatever we want all day long and not sell to anyone because we thought that that's what everyone wanted, but nobody wanted it, right? So do you suggest that people go out and get feedback, ask their audience, poll their audience? What would you advise people to do on that one?
So there are a few different ways you can approach this. Surveys are really good. I've seen people say if you fill out the survey, you have a chance to get like a $25 Amazon gift card. Just get people to fill out the survey, because the more people fill it out, the better of an idea you have on what people want. Polls are also pretty good. If you ask them on social networks to get different answers. One thing I also like to do that I feel like doesn't get as much coverage is look at your existing content and what you've shared on your social networks and see what's been really hitting with people. So when I first started using Twitter, like my tweets about like how to grow your Twitter followers, how to get more Twitter traffic, those were booming. So I created a lot of Twitter-based content. I don't do that as much anymore because now content marketing, that's a topic that people want more from me based on the engagement that I've seen. And I'm even shifting even deeper into like podcasting and virtual summits, because that's another topic people want from me based on the engagement that I've been able to get. So like polls and surveys, those are both really great. I'd lean more towards surveys than polls because you can ask more questions in a survey. But looking at how people engage with your content in real time is a really good indicator of what people want from you.
Yeah. It's funny. I just recently threw out something because people always tell me they want more speaking gigs, right? That's the thing. I'm a speaking coach. I want more speaking gigs. I want more speaking gigs. And what I realized is when I ask most people, really, do you need more speaking gigs or do you make more money from speaking? Because the thing is, like, if I go and do 3 talks and make 30,000 and just speaking this month, I don't really need to go travel over and do 5. I'm good. Like I have other things I'm doing. So it's if you're converting high enough. But so what I needed to do is kind of like asked them, do you want more speaking gigs? And then when I got them on the webinar, I was like, you don't need more speaking gigs. If you feel like you're not getting enough, it's because something in your delivery isn't working. It's either your positioning, it could be your delivering of the talk itself, it could be your conversions in the sale, it could be a lot of things, but it's not that you need more speaking gigs. And I was shocked. They stuck around a lot longer on my webinar than probably I've ever seen. And it was this funny because I felt it was kind of like a bait and switch, but I was giving them what they needed. I gave them a whole directory of sites and blah, all these places to go get more gigs. But what I really did was give them what they need and needed to hear that they might not be thinking about, right? So sometimes it's fun. I was just like, I'm going to try something new, kind of outside the box, and I'm going to see how it goes. And I actually got way more engagement, and people stayed longer for that webinar than any other webinar.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to experiment with that. Like retention rate is a big thing if you could track that, because if someone's sticking around for like 60, 70, 80% of your content, you know it's a home run. Yeah,
I think that's a good test as well. Like you're saying, if you have your own stats on some of these things, those are the things. If they're watching your video to the end, if they're, start paying really attention, like you said, looking out there, who's engaging, what are they engaging with? What are they saying in those engagements? Because it could just be, oh, well, this one got 700 likes, but there was no comments on it. So that it's like, okay, so what's in the picture or what I said that people are like, oh, it's pretty good, but not enough to leave something, right? Or did you not have a call to action or an ask for somebody at the end that they can engage? So I think you're right, like really checking those things out in your marketing and seeing where you're maybe missing a piece that you could totally help people with and you don't even notice.
Yep.
So you're talking about podcasting and summits and making money. So tell us a little bit more about how someone can take their podcast or a summit, because I feel like it's the same thing, an interview, right? Take these interviews, however you repurpose them, because this will go to YouTube and it's on my Facebook Live right now. So there's a lot of different areas that this is being delivered. But in the money-making process, tell us a little bit about how you set up taking interviews and making them into a money-making machine.
So podcasting and virtual summits, the content creation is essentially the same. The monetization is a little different. So with the podcast, you have a few different options. Virtual summits, you have a few more. But podcasting, the way that works is you can get sponsors. That's something that everyone knows about podcasting. It's something that you need a ton of downloads for, so I wouldn't do that first. You can promote affiliate offers during your shows and have that act as the sponsor. If your show's big enough, you could also charge guests to be on your show, something I was very skeptical of for a while. But at this point, I'm getting like 10 to 12 pitches each week. I can only take 2 people a week. So at that point, like if you want to be on my show, then, I do charge some people to be on the show just because I get more pitches than I can ever respond to. So those are some of and in both. I think I'll just go with the virtual summits because everything I say about the virtual summits for the most part will also apply to podcasting except the last thing at the very end. Okay. So for virtual summits, it's all interviews in general. When you interview that person can be your client. Like I've interviewed people on Breakthrough Success and I've ended up like hiring them for their services at the end of the interview. And the guy who I hired basically told me how he does sort of the same thing where like he interviews someone and then that person becomes the client. So that's a way for interviews. And with virtual summits, what makes them different and why it's a bigger way to make money than podcasting is that you get a bunch of affiliates to promote the summit, and then that gets people on your email list. When you promote your podcast, you're getting people to iTunes, to Spotify, to Stitcher, maybe even to your own blog, which is all great, but it's not traffic that you own. While with a virtual summit, you're leading people into your email list. You're able to make that all access pass sell right away, $47, maybe even more if you want to charge more. And you have all the upsells you could add. You can lead people into the webinar. So the virtual summit has a more dynamic relationship. It's just a short-term thing unless you do decide to go the evergreen route.
So in a summit, you're immediately charging them the $47? Are you saying that it's a paid summit and not a free summit?
I'm saying that people get free access to all the sessions for 24 hours. So day 1, you have that for 24 hours. Day 2, 24 hours. If you want all the sessions for a lifetime, that's the all access pass.
Okay, and that's the $47.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. And then do you think that, like I've seen different things that I've thought were good and not good. So in a summit, I also saw like when all the guests had giveaways, like free stuff. And of course that gives them back to their list, because maybe you came from John's list and you've never seen Marc, and all of a sudden you're watching it too. And you're like, oh, so now you're getting more people, more eyes on your stuff as well. So for people to then go out and opt into their free giveaway is also, I feel like that adds that win-win-win for all of us, because so many times I feel like when you're just a guest, I mean, I think
I know
20 people maybe, added to my list on any given summit. So I always feel like I want to add more value to the people who are also taking the time to email out to their list and show up for the interview and all of those things as well.
Yeah, I really love that, because I feel like I love virtual summits. A lot of people are starting to see its great business model. The one bad rap it has, though, is that, well, like if you're a guest, again, like maybe you're getting some growth, but the organizer's getting like thousands of people and thousands of dollars, while guests, like, it's rarely that clear for you to see. So I mean, if you do like a giveaway and like when someone buys the all access pass, you bring in a bunch of their resources all together from all of the speakers. It just really helps them grow their audiences and gives them more incentive to promote your summit too.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when we start really thinking about each other as collaborators and real true affiliates where it's a win-win, then everyone's all working towards the highest and best, right? Because we all want to succeed and we all want stuff out of it. It's our time too, right? So just making sure that you really feel like that's a win-win. So let's say, all right, so you do the summit, the summit is over, right? Because now you had all the people that bought it, the all access, but now the summit's over. So now how do you make that then into evergreen that people can keep buying from? And I know you also talk about adding on to it later and all of that. So tell us a little bit more about that next couple steps.
So with the Evergreen Summit, it certainly depends on what you're using for WordPress. I use Optimize Press and a certain plugin, Dynamic Dates, which allows you to control what dates show up there. And then if you put the dates on the spot where they need to be, like towards the top of the page, people see that the summit starts tomorrow. For something like ClickFunnels or something else where, that WordPress plugin isn't there, my recommendation there would be to just do a countdown timer for when the summit is going to start. So you see with these evergreen webinars saying that, oh, this evergreen webinar is going to start in 10 minutes. While you can't really do that with a virtual summit, you can say something like this virtual summit will start in the next 24 hours, get your ticket now. And then have all that lead to the all access pass. That's a thank you sales page. And then for the rest of it, it's just the email sequence. That's easy to make it evergreen because you just say, here's day 1, here's day 2, here's day 3. Instead of saying like, here's like June 22nd, June 23rd, June 24th, because those dates are relevant at the time of this live. But if you see those same things in August, something's up. So you just do day 1, day 2, day 3, and then you have an evergreen summit.
And how long do you think, what have you seen the best in for conversions? Do you think it's a 1 day? Do you think it's a 3 day? What do you think? And like for what people's attention span, right? Because you're talking about content marketing. It's also to people's attention span. So what have you seen?
The 2 most successful summits I did had 7-day time spans. And I think that's enough time for people to just consume a lot of content. I mean, and people have different preferences for what works. I've done 4-day summits also, but in my experience, I see if you do 7 and you've got anywhere from 20 to 50 speakers, that's going to set you up for a really nice summit, just because you have more time to also promote the all access pass and get people interacting with each other. Like the longer the summit is, or like any kind of like, think of an in-person event. If that in-person event is like 5 days long, you're bumping into the same people, able to, spend more time there. If it's a 1-day in-person event, then it's a great day, but then like there's no day 2 and not as much follow-up. Now you can create that follow-up through email sequence and bringing people into a Facebook group, but that's just based on what I've seen. For me, 7-day summits tend to do really well.
Okay. That feels like a lot of work. 7 days. I'm like, I'm thinking my one day it's good right now. Like I'm good. Like that's a lot for me. But I also have way more things to deliver on. So I'm like, okay. But it's also really good. I think, the other thing is thinking about how people, when I think about my ideal audience and I think about how they like things delivered, I really do think you should have different places for them to come in. People that just want online content, that's where they hang out. They buy webinars, they attend webinars, they attend summits. That's their thing, because they buy online courses because they like to digest their information that way. And then if you're at a live event, of course, selling to live events, like people who go to live events like live events, right? So thinking about having the different ways of you delivering that same thing. So even if that is a summit and then those same people are on a stage, right? There's ways to do that so that you're making sure that your audience is being served in the way that they need to receive the information. Right?
Yep. It's a really important point that people like to learn in different ways.
Yeah. So what do you think is the hottest thing right now that people really should be doing that you don't see as many people capitalizing on?
Definitely virtual summits. Now, I'm not just saying that because of the virtual summit guy, but I mean, like, if you look at blogging, there's like so many bloggers. If you look at podcasting, there's not that many, like 600,000 podcasters. But for virtual summits, it's even less people. Because not only do you have to like know how to interview people, so that usually means you have a podcast. If you don't have a podcast, you go 100% still do a summit. But there's not really numbers yet on like how many virtual summits have been created, because that would just be really hard to track. But I don't know how there could be like more than 10,000 virtual summits. Like I really don't feel like there are that many. And like for my summits, like, content marketing success summit or wealthy author summit or profitable podcasting summit, like there's not really that many other summits that are anywhere related to those. I'd say maybe they're like 2, 3, maybe even 4. That might be related. While with podcasting, like, and podcasting smaller than blogging and those others. If you got a podcast in like business, you content marketing, you got thousands of competitors. So I think virtual summits are pretty big.
Yeah. And how long do you do a promotional cycle for them? So say my virtual summit starts on July 1st. I'll just make that up. But how far back do you think, because you got to you got to get all the people, procure all the people who are going to speak, right? And then you have like the promotional time to get everything going and get it out there. How long do you usually set that up for?
I myself start promoting the summit 2 to 4 weeks beforehand, and I have the speakers and other affiliates promote about a week before. One thing that I have seen that I have not done yet is people will say you could get like a free workbook or something like that, so they can promote like even like 4 weeks earlier. I've seen some people do something like that. But that's what I usually do. Everyone promotes a week before the summit. I promote like a week or two before everyone, just to make sure everything works and just to see different ways to improve the conversion rates. Because if you can improve the conversion rate before you get the swarm of people promoting, then you're bound to make more sales. So that's what I would say for the promotional piece.
Yeah. And I think you're also right in the sense where if I promote this out 6 weeks ahead, people are going to forget. It's not going to be top of mind, and it's not going to be, you're not going to be still getting, like 6 weeks of getting dripped email, right? To build up to this thing. I'm like, that's a long time, but 2 to 4 weeks, I think, yeah, I've always seen, even in my own events, I have the highest like ticket purchase rate between the second, 3 weeks before, and then some days it's like, I can't even believe how many people are buying the night before. And I'm always like, okay, whatever. But it's that stress too of like, are there going to be people that show up? And I'm sure it's the same of doing, I haven't done one yet, but doing a live event versus doing a summit like that online and being like, okay, how many people are going to be there? And like that whole thing, it's still the same thing, that anxiety of like, will anybody come? Will anybody purchase? What do you think is the best for really, I haven't bought a lot of all access. So this is interesting to me because usually if I have something I really want to watch, I put it on my calendar, I block out time and I just do it. But then again, I wouldn't sit for 7 days and right. So maybe that's even a process in that whole thing about how many days. But what do you think is the best way to upsell it into being that all access pass? What do you think people really want that's making them that purchase that?
I think people are just compelled by the amount of content that is there. I mean, those two like top summits I mentioned that, were like 7 days. Those are also the most amount of speakers. It's easier to sell an all access pass for $47 when you're promising 50 speakers than when you're only promising 10 speakers, just because of like sheer numbers. Now, like, even if those 10 speakers are really good, I mean, you're looking at it from like, $4.70 for a video on average, if it's 10, while if it's like over 50 speakers, then, it comes closer to like under $1 a video. And the way I did it for the other summits, like there's somewhere I literally give out over 30 hours of content. And when people think about a $47 all access pass with 30 hours of content from all these people, or like a high-end training course, people go for the all access pass based on my experience.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I also think it all depends on how specific you're talking, because if you're talking about content strategy, there, like you said, there's a whole bunch of things. You could just one person could just be Facebook, one could just be Twitter, one could just be Instagram, one could be it could be in all these content strategies. It could be podcasting, right? All the different things. But in the same thing, you're like, well, I don't need those, right? So sometimes I think about it, if it's too broad, like if you just said the business success summit, right? It's so broad that I'm like, well, maybe like 3 of those people I want their stuff from, but I don't really care about this. I don't want to be an author. I don't want to be whatever. I don't want to do a podcast. I don't want to be a dog walker, right? So like figuring out, thinking about the problems again, that your main problems that your audience that you're going to help solve, I think really helps people go, oh yeah, this is all good, because it's all things that I'm actually looking for. And even if I'm not thinking about Twitter today, but eventually I want to do Twitter and there's an expert on Twitter, then I know it's there.
Yep. That's
okay.
Great.
I love that. So what would you say for people who are already out there speaking, they're speakers, they're out there doing this thing, they're speaking, they're probably coaching, they might have a book, they might have smaller offers, but what would you say? Do you think that doing a summit with people, now this is always the interesting one, because I believe there is no competition. Like, that's why I'm going to host one with all TEDx speakers, speaking coaches, and I'm a TEDx speaking coach. But I don't care, because I'm different than how they do it. And I don't care if you like me, maybe you don't, but if I provided a platform and you found your coach out of it, you're going to be happy and you're going to like me no matter what, because you're like, wow, I really got something out of that, right? So that's how I see it. But when a lot of times, like when we were talking about, it's like, do you see that like people feel competitive? Like, oh, well, I wouldn't have anyone that taught what I teach. Like for you, like, oh, I wouldn't teach anyone that's monetizing podcasts or virtual summits. Or do you think it's good to add the different levels and layers of that in a summit?
I think it's good to add, I think it's good to add like a lot of different levels, because it's good to, like, for one of my most recent summits, the Advanced Affiliate Marketing Summit, I had a bunch of people who, like, affiliate marketing is literally their full-time income. And I had other people who affiliate marketing is a part-time income. It's like a side hustle. So for all different attendees watching with different ambitions, different goals for themselves, for some of them, the side hustle is good. For some of them, the full-time affiliate marketing is good, but put the two together and, you could learn different things from both sides, regardless of whether you think of it more of a side or more of a full-time.
Yeah. Where do you make your most money?
I would say through the relationships I'm able to build, because it leads to virtual summit launches with a lot of speakers. And it also leads to the affiliate marketing, because usually I get in a lot of those launches because of relationships I already have.
Yeah. I think that's the one piece that so many of us are missing, or people are missing, is that, I'm always the person that gives fully. Like, a lot of my coaches always tell me, you just give too much. And I'm like, I don't care, because as long as people feel like they got what they needed and they leave happy that they met me, that makes me happy. I don't really care, right? They go, then what happens is, I might be at a big event, that person will come back and have a line of people. You got to meet Erin. She's amazing. She gave me 4 different referrals. She gave me this, and she didn't even pitch herself, right? Like, so people line up and you build these relationships. Then you have all these like worker bees out there doing your marketing for you, and you have no idea. And I think that's one of the pieces that I think people miss a lot, because they're so worried about someone taking their content or just digesting all your free stuff and never paying you, or whatever all that lack mentality does. But I think that building those relationships and being of service to people is such a huge thing, because then when you say, hey, I got the Transformational Speaker Summit coming up in September. I'd love to have you come. I'd love for you to promote it. If you have people that want to be speakers, let's do this, right? Then you'd be like, yeah, Erin, of course I'd help you, because you've already helped me in all these other ways, So I think you're totally right on that. Building the relationships is key. And I think people are missing that a lot because they're so busy trying to sell their stuff.
Yep. Relationships are key.
Yeah. I love that. So you make more, I like that reframe. I make more money from the relationships I build. And it's actually true, because I am that person too, but I've never put it in that terms, because I'm like, well, I have my highest package is coaching. But if I think about how much more I get out of different things, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I'd have to really look at that and look at the numbers of how many people I serve, and because I have online courses, I have podcasts, I have, all my stuff goes to YouTube. Then I have, webinars, and then now I have a summit, and then I have, I have a book. I have like so many things that you could just keep create, like we said, content creators, right? And it's all different places for people to play. At the same time, it's all different ways that we can all make money too, right? It's all about building those relationships. The longer I have this training that teaches you how to make $10,000 from any stage, and it's like 10K from anystage.com. And in it is this piece that's like the conversion matrix of how long you're in front of somebody, building that trust and rapport of how much you can offer when you pitch them. So many times people are like, oh, we're sitting here talking for 30 minutes. Well, let me just sell you a $50,000 package. Doesn't work. Doesn't convert as well, because you haven't had that time to build that relationship. This is so awesome. I'm just loving this, because it's all building upon like the stuff that we talk about. And this is really fun. So what would you suggest? So people start, you can say, go do a virtual summit. Where should people get started? Do you have something for them to know how to do a virtual summit? I know there's a lot of back end. I have an affiliate with Mark Wade, who does the virtual summits. His software. Have you seen his stuff?
I have not.
I would be happy to do an intro for you. So he has a software system that I guess follows all of it up. I'm in my free trial right now to see how, and it plugs in all your speakers for you. And when the people can go in and add their information to it, so their bios, their headshots, and all that stuff, so like cut down the work. And then it of course has the CRM where you're, putting it out, and all your email sequences and all that stuff. But if you're telling people, go do a summit, and they're like, I don't know. Do you have information for them? Do you have a guide? What do you suggest?
I'll suggest two things. If you want me to do that for you, I do that for people. So if you go to marcguberti.com/strategy, schedule a strategy call, see if you want to do it with me, if you want me to help you with your summit, your podcast, just growing your business. If you want to do it by yourself, though, there are two different ways you can do it. First is a combination of ClickFunnels and Teachable. So ClickFunnels being your opt-in page, getting people into the event, and having all the upsell follow-up, and Teachable being the place where you put all of the sessions for the all access pass holders. The other option is if you use your own website and you have optimized press on it, that is the back end that I use for most of my summits, because it's a little clunky, but it gives you the most options with that evergreen capability and doing a bunch of the different things that allow you to run a really smooth virtual summit.
I love that. It sounds a lot easier, because when you think about all of the things that go into it, it's a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of working parts. And so that just makes it sound a little bit easier. But I love that. I love that you can help people. So when you help people build it, are you also helping them build the marketing strategies ahead of it?
That depends on what the individual wants. So I do help with the marketing also, if that's something that they want help with. Some people, they just want me to create the summit, like the back end, and they do all the stuff the rest of the work themselves. It's based on what you want.
I love it. So when I have my summit ready, I can come to you and say, hey, can you help me market it? Let's figure this out. What's the best strategy? That would be fun. I love to play with my collaborators. It's always fun to go, okay, let's do this. And then I love to see, because it's also building that relationship. When I see how you work with people, it's so much easier for me to refer you more people, because I'm like, oh yes, oh my gosh, she helped me with mine. And everyone asks me where I get my stuff done. You know, I was playing baseball last night. I play on an all men's softball league. And this guy walks up, he's like, oh my gosh, Erin, I saw your video for your upcoming event. It looks phenomenal. Like, I'm not even a speaker. I'm a painting guy and I want to come. And I was like, wow. And I was like, dude, I know. And he's like, how much did you spend on that? I was like, $50 on Fiverr. And he was like, what? He's like, you got to give me this guy's name. And I was like, sure. I've had like 10 people ask me for the guy's name. I've like built this dude a business now. But that's the thing, building those relationships, right? Yeah.
And Fiverr is also so underrated in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. And you can really find some good people. I think people are so nervous about it. And when you see somebody's work, remember that just because you see it, you can also go, you know, I had him do it the first time and he had a lot of pictures of like Singapore or these international cities. Mine's in Palm Springs, not the same mentality, like not even in the same sphere. So I'm like, I grabbed some royalty-free videos and I purchased them and I said, hey, use these because they're Palm Springs in the front and I really like the look of these. And so he did, and it made it so much better. And it just gave you that more warmer feeling, right? And I was like, see, you just have to be able to look at it, send somebody some stuff, then have them then look at it and go, okay, if I was looking at the screen by screen, what would I want, right? And then just ask them and then they do it. And they love it because this is what makes them excited for life. You know, you got to remember that these people are posting up things that they love to do. And so it's actually helping them. All right. So we kind of know some of the places if they want strategy calls. So how can people get more information about you, your website? Tell us a little bit more and I'll have it all put in the show notes as well.
So in addition to the strategy call, marcguberti.com/strategy. If you take out the strategy part, you get to my website. If you get the strategy, you put strategy in there, you get the free call with me. Another place you could find me, we've talked about virtual summits, a lot of different things. I believe that one of the good things to do is like look at someone else's work, see how good they are before you want to make an investment in them or before you really want to follow this person. So my summit, Content Marketing Success Summit.com, that was my first summit I ever did. We have now over 70 speakers. We started at 50. We added a few to make it over 70. That is an evergreen summit. So you'll be able to see the flow of that, which continues getting all access past sales to this day.
I love it. That's awesome. It's just amazing. I love that we can do something in technology now that we can continue to get paid on. You know, royalties used to only be for like people who sang music or movies or whatever. And now like we're all kind of creating our own ways of getting that for a lifetime. So I think that's really awesome. So one of my very favorite questions to ask is about our future self. So I always put myself in my future self spot when I'm like stuck on a problem, or maybe I'm lacking a little confidence in a big ask, or I'm like, oh, what is the next step? Am I on the right path? And I just kind of bring my future self. I call her ELJ, and she sits down. She has a $40 million company. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She's got a show. She's got all these things, and she's already been past all of this, right? So she giggles at this stuff that I'm struggling with now, right? So what would your future self come and tell you today for advice?
You just say like, put in more time, put in more effort, because in the end, like the more time and effort you put in, the more results you're bound to get. And then it's better to like not know what you're doing, but be willing to put in the time and effort than know what you're doing, but not be willing to put in the time. Because with all that time and effort, you eventually learn what you're supposed to be doing, what you have to do to hit your goals. So I would say just keep putting the time and effort. It's a long-term game. There's no short-term gratification. There's no click this one button on your mouse and your computer spits out all this money at you. It's type the blog post when no one's watching you. Create the video even if you know it may get no views, because each video makes you better, and you know someday you get that big video. So I would say time and effort. It's not like flashy advice, but it's the advice that works.
Yeah. And I think you're right. You know, so many times I make a decision and go with it. And as I go, I realize if it's the right decision or if I need to pivot a little bit to make it the right decision. So putting in that, doing the work, going through it, going, oh, no, I didn't like that. And maybe, okay, if I don't like that, let's go back to what was the intention when I started and where I wanted to go. Okay, well, that didn't work. So let's try a different function. Let's try a different route to that. Let's try a different strategy to see if it actually works instead of just going, oh, it just doesn't work and be done. Right? Work at it. See what works. See what you get results in. And a result is not a failure or a pass. It just really is a result. And you can look at it as feedback and go, do I want more of that or do I want less of that? And make more decisions and keep going. Don't stop, because that's when the person's like, 3 feet from gold or whatever. It's usually when they stop and they quit. And all those bad days when I want to quit too. And I have in the last 8 years, there's been times, man, I just say, man, it'd just be so much easier if I got a real job. And then I go, oh yeah. And I sit down to even write a resume. I'm like, no, I can't. I just can't bring myself to it. And I'm like, okay, just keep moving, right? Just keep taking those steps. Just keep moving. And eventually it all works. And it does. It really does. So thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun. And I'm excited to play together because I think there's some things we can really, really help. And if you're free, you should come to the Speaker Summits right after. I think you're going to be at Steve Olsher's event, right? The New Media Summit. From there, I don't know if your tickets are bought, but from there you could fly to Palm Springs because Devi is going to be speaking, and then she's coming to speak on my stage. There's some more people that are going to that are coming down afterwards too. So it's the 19th to the 21st. If you're available, I'd love to have you there. We can promote you, and there's opportunities for that too. So that'd be really awesome. If you're not overly busy.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for watching. And we will see you on stage.